Next up, we're going to talk about understanding what the star as a service or anything as a service model is. Service, when we talk about it in the cloud computing environments, is a bit of a different use of the word than you'll see in some other places. Ultimately, it means that what we use to describe control layers in the computing stack. And if we look back at what that on-premises stack was before, the control layers were nowhere for the consumer. They were ground up to the application, all handled by the IT department. What we're doing now in a cloud computing environment is we're able to move further up the stack by abstracting those underlying service layers. What we really want to get to is that our consumer, the service, shouldn't have to have a concern about what's happening underneath the covers. They already had that before in a lot of ways with the physical hardware layers, but now we can do that much further up the stack. And the entire goal of this is to make the focus an agnostic approach. And by agnostic, meaning that they only have to be concerned about higher layers, and then underneath the covers, they just get presented what they require for that period of time. In our first model, we look at infrastructure as a service. Now, infrastructure as a service is the most common cloud platform model you're going to see. There's some common ones obviously out there, including Amazon Web Services. There's Microsoft Azure. There's a lot of OpenStack service where they use OpenStack in order to deliver those bottom layers. And this is what it's going to look like now compared to what our traditional on-premises stack looked like. You'll notice they're a little different. The lower layers, going from the networking up to the virtualization layer, are now in what we call a service provider controlled layer. That's an abstraction where they're now delivering this to the consumers as the new baseline. Above those layers, at the operating system layer through middleware, runtime, data, and applications, this is now the consumer-controlled environment. So as you can see here, we've abstracted everything up to the virtualization layer, and effectively the guest operating system and above is now all that the consumer has to be worried about. So with our infrastructure as a service model, we've abstracted all of the hardware layers and eliminated the need for our business consumer to have any concern about what's happening underneath the covers. They only need to request guest resources. And this effectively removes them from the requirement of having to buy bare metal hardware. They don't have to know, I have one application, so therefore I need to buy one server. Or I have 12 applications, therefore I need 12 servers, or 24 because I need disaster recovery or further environments. They can now get on-demand growth and reduction in that layer with only paying for what they need at that time. Next, we'll talk about platform as a service. Platform as a service is sort of a higher level abstraction. Exactly as we had before, it's the same stack of services, but now from the networking layer all the way up to the runtime layer is being handled as the service provider controlled layers. So your service provider is now delivering everything up to the runtime, meaning that only the application and the data layers are going to be in the consumer controlled environment. Platform as a service is a great way in order to leave just the programming side to the consumer. They only have to worry about code and data. They don't have to be concerned about runtimes and hardware and middleware and all these other layers where there's generally a lot of tweaks and knobs and turning of things in order to tune those environments. So platform as a service is that higher layer of abstraction further up. Now the consumer simply just builds their app, manages their data, and they don't have to be concerned about the rigidity that's happening underneath the covers. And because of the high level that we've moved up to by pushing up to the data layer and the application layer, we've really reduced the question marks they have to have when they're writing their applications. Anything as a service is what we've now been able to deliver. These are different layers within the stack, but there's even right up to a specific application. Firewall as a service, you're going to hear that. Load balancing as a service. Database as a service. Imagine being able to just consume database resources by being delivered a data source name. Desktop as a service is a very popular platform that's growing. Disaster recovery as a service. Running disaster recovery services in a cloud environment versus your traditional on-premises environment. Now you can recover into the cloud, whether it's on your cloud or on someone else's. Ultimately, there are many, many more options that are going to come, and this is an exciting time because of these abstraction layers that we're able to deliver.